Hello everyone. In our class today we're gonna continue our discussion about the use of landscape metrics to analyze the land use land cover changes in some landscapes. In our class today we will see the practice part with the application with softwares and some analysis to understand this dynamic. Then in our class, we're gonna see something about the data acquisition, the manipulation of this data, and the analysis of this data. I'll give you some more examples and extra contents with papers and videos and extra knowledge and some reference. As we talked in our last class, we have a lot of different softwares and plugins that work with this landscape metrics analysis. But in our class, we are going to work with the patch analysis. It's a plugin for ArcMap. And before we started to see the application, we need to understand that we have three main phases in this kind of application. First of all, we have the data acquisition about the study area we want to analyze. After have the data, we will manipulate this data and apply the landscape metrics. And in the last part, we will analyze the results that we will have with this application. Then in the first phase, we're gonna produce or declare the land user land cover. In the second phase, we will have the software's applications, and to finish, we will have the results. Then our class today, we will see all these three phases. To begin with the data acquisition. Today, we are gonna work with a small part of the São Carlos city that we can see in this image. It's the Monjolinho watershed. That it's a region that have some agricultural activities and urban and even nature areas. But we can apply this kind of study or methodology in any area around the world. This is the region in ArcMap with a Landsat 80 image from 2020. Today we won't need to produce the land use land cover because we're gonna share with you. But as we talk about it, we can download some Landsat images or some satellite images and produce our results, or downloaded it for some governmental agents that share the data with the population. But the only problem sometimes with the data from governmental agencies is the quality, the scale of this information. Maybe sometimes it's not good for some specific analysis. For example, to work with landscape metrics, we need a satellite image with quality similar with Landsat 8, with a scale of 30 meters, for example. Bigger scales, the results maybe won't be good because we need to classify the classes of land use land cover. We can only classify the type of ecosystems. For example, if it's only natural or anthropic, we need some specific kind of analysis. We need to understand if that region have sugarcane or have berry soil or have another kind of land use. Just to remember, you guys, if you will gonna produce our our data, we first of all we need to create our shapefile and start to classify the image. Then you select the data, the datum, or the geographic projection. After this, we work with the table inside our shapefile to create the area and the name of the class. As we can see in this picture, one thing when it's important when we are doing our classification manually, it's the scale of analysis. For example, we in the software we can do the zoom in or zoom out to see our image, right? But our image here, for example, it's 1 to 50,000. That the pixel has 30 meters of analysis. If we explode the pixel, explode this scale, our analysis or change the scale. For example, in 10 minutes, I do in a with a kind of zoom. Then my eye started to get tired, and I explode the zoom to see the image, the fragments. The analysis will be not confidential. Then it's not good to do this. Then the idea is that we fix our scale in the software to don't permit this kind of zoom in or zoom out. Then we have a fixed scale to analyze our image. Then we start the edition to analyze our image and start to create and to analyze the fragments. But sometimes the Landsat images, for example, or other satellites that doesn't have a good scale, some areas will be difficult to understand what kind of land use is that region. Then we can convert our shapefile to a Google Earth file. Then you can open our shape in a Google Earth with a better image. For example, right here. Then we have in a high resolution image here. Then we can take some advices and confirm some areas that we are having problem. Even in ArcMap, we can download this in the Word image and open this kind of high resolution images in our. But remember, the Google Earth software is just to fix and to confirm some issues in our image, because in the most of the time the data that Google Earth has, it's not the same data, the same image that we are working in our study, for example. It's just to confirm some parts. And jumping for data that are already done in the literature and governmental agencies, as you remember, we can find this kind of data in diverse parts of the world. In Brazil, for example, in US, in Europe, or in China, for example. Then the governmental agencies around the world sometimes have some data about land use and land cover, but unfortunately sometimes are not for all the years from our history. They have some specific years around the time. For example, the Korean land cover has a only period from 2 years to 2 years. Then if you have a specific month or a specific period uh, before or even through this period we will need to do by ourselves, for example. And this is this result after we finish our land use and land cover classification. And with this information, you're gonna work with the landscape metrics. Then we apply the metrics in this information. Then we when you work with this kind of land use and land cover analysis and landscape metrics analysis, it's important to compare the time. For example, in here you're going to work with 2013 and 2020 because we need to know if the landscape change around the time and how it's going to change. For example, it's normally you see in the literature papers and studies that compare some situations and not do only in a period of time, for example. Then we have these two information and then we're gonna apply our metrics here. And now you're gonna work data manipulation, applying the landscape metric. And we're gonna start our data manipulation, data analysis with analyzing the land use and land cover classification for both years. And here you can see in this table that is inside our shapefile with the area of each fragment and the classification we did in the software. And you can extract this information from ArcMap or any GIS software from the Excel. We can take the Excel to the software and we can export the this table to Excel too. Then here we can use this plugin to import our information to Excel. Then we can manipulate better our results. Then we have here the same information with area of each fragment and the name of each fragment here. And after manipulate our table, we have the results of the total area of each class and the percentage of the class for both years. In our case, 2013 and 2020. Then we have the area, for example, of sugarcane in both of years and the percentage of this land use class in the whole area. And with this land use data, we can do a lot of different things. We can do graphics or apply some statistics to compare or do some historical analysis, because here we can understand how the landscape is changing and how is the characteristics of that region in over the time. Then we can understand what is going on with our study area, for example. If we are having some more deforestations in our region, or if the urban areas are growing, or if we have reforestation in some areas, then we can analyze this through the time. And we can analyze our landscape as a whole, as a unique unit, or we can understand each class inside our landscape. For example, we can analyze only the vegetation class and understand what happened with this class, for example. In 2013, we have almost 3,000 hectares. In 2020, almost 40,000. That that then we have a growth in the vegetation areas. Then we can understand through the history of this region that some anthropic actions fix some vegetation problems in the region. Then it's a good start to understand if the anthropic activities and the anthropic actions are sufficient to protect the area, for example, or if the urban regions are growing and how is this grow inside. Then you can have a lot of questions inside this analysis. And also inside the softwares, you can do this kind of graph. We can export to Excel. Then in Excel, we have more uh, attributes to do this kind of analysis. But even in the softwares, we can do this kind of analysis and understand the changes inside the software. And after analyze the land use and land cover changes and to extract this information, and we will start to apply the landscape metrics. Why this is important? Why it's important to do the land use and land cover analysis before apply the land use and the landscape metrics? Because with the land use and land cover analysis, we will have a brief, an abstract about the situation of our region. Think if you don't know some region, what happened in this region, for example. The land use and land cover analysis will give you some information to understand the characteristics of that region. Then you help you to understand the results of the landscape metrics. Then the steps inside this kind of studies is always in this form. First, the land use land cover analysis, then you take a look inside this data, then after it, you started to use the landscape metrics. Because remember that I say that there's a lot of different kinds of metrics and thousands of index, but we need to know a little bit about our region to choose the best metrics that you want to work and to see in our region. It's why it's also important, this information. And you are going to work with the patch analysis. It's a freeware from the Center for Northern Forest Ecosystem Research. It's a plugin for ArcMap, and it started since the ArcGIS 9.3, but we can work with this within the latest versions. Then before the application, as we talked, we need to choose the metrics that we're gonna work. And in our class today, I select some specific metrics that could explain some changes in the landscape. For example, the number of patches, uh, the total area, or the diversity index, and the patch size, and other ones. I would like you to study a little bit about this kind of index and to understand correct the significance of the. And remember, we can analyze only the landscape as a only unit, or we can analyze all the classes. Then we are gonna see in our class both analysis with the landscape and the classes, and we apply the same index. And here I am just showing how to install the patch analysis. Probably if you're gonna use the software in the university, they already done this for you, but you are going to work with in our computers. It will be interesting to know. Uh, you can download it, the software and install. After install, you open the ArcGIS and go to customize mode and open this menu. And inside the menu, you have the patch analysis. You can extract this and push, and you have the patch analysis here in your software. And here uh, we can see both both periods you want to analyze in 2013 and 2020. It's here, it's the same shape files you work before. And in the patch analysis, you can see a lot of attributes here. But to work with the matrix, we can use the special statistics. Then we click there. And here we will have the shape files that are open in our software and all the metrics that the software work. Then to run, before run, we need to select all the metrics you want to analyze and some classifications here as you're gonna see. And here I select only the metrics that are in our table that I show you in the previous slide. Then we need to select here in the class. It's the name of the column that are the land use land cover class. And here, analyze by landscape, we can analyze this as explained from the landscape as a whole or in the class for each land use land cover class in our region. Then first, we select the shapefile and the column in the table. Second, we select the kind of analysis we need to do. Then the name of the output, because it will in the table form. Then we have a new file. And in the last one, we select all the matrix and put run. But if you have some doubts and want to understand more, the software has the patch analysis help. Then you can understand all the name of the matrices and the equations inside the matrices and all the explanations about the software. And this is the result for 2020 and 2013 of the matrices that you work before we select in the software and you want to work. Take a look. The name of the, the, the columns in the table, it's it's a simplified form. Then we need to understand these names to understand what kind of index it's here. Just to remember this. And in the same way we did with land use land cover analysis, then we export the numbers to Excel. We can do this for the metrics and organize our table with the index and the results that we found. First of all, we work with the landscape as a whole unit, and now you're gonna see the same work with the classes unit. Then here the same, but now we choose two class here. Then the software will analyze all the class in our region. Here, this is the result by class. Then we have the results by exposed soils, sugarcane, vegetation for the both years. The results will appear separately, but only in these slides I put them together. But you have two files for the metrics in class and two files for the metrics in landscape, for example. And here we have the same results from the metrics, but now for each class. And just to remember why it's important to analyze the landscape as a whole and the classes separately. Because when you analyze the landscape as a whole, you can understand all the changes and all the system that is going to work inside the landscape. And when we work with a class, we can understand specifically how it's working specifically class of land use. This both analysis help us to understand and to give data and information how the land use and land cover are changing around the time. And after this classification and the whole manipulation of the data, we started to analyze this information. And always when we analyze this kind of information, we need to answer some questions about what happened with this region. For example, what can you tell about the region? The main characteristics of their time, the main characteristics of the land use, land cover, which class of use it's appear with more in the region. It's the matrix, for example, or which class of land user are losing areas around the time. What are the characteristics of the land use classes? It's a description, which class changes, which class lose area or growing area, which is the specific changes around the time, and a lot of descriptions we can do. What is the mean activity in the region? What is, as remember our theory, what is the matrix in our landscape? What is the main region? Normally the matrix explain the situation and the organization of the land use and land cover and the characteristics of a landscape. How had the landscape changed over the years? If you have growth or decrease in natural anthropic activities, if you had an impact in some areas, how this landscape changed? And what happened with the vegetation areas? In the most of the studies, our focus to use landscape metrics is in the vegetation. Then this question is also very important. How is the vegetation? We are having a deforestation, a forestation, a fragmentation, or a connectivity. But to understand what happened with the vegetation, we need to understand the whole landscape. That's why we do all the studies with all the classes in the whole landscape. And what actions, and before to understand all this information and to give details about it, we started to think what actions can we suggest as a scientist, as a governmental agents to increase and to fix some problems in this landscape. What can we do to resolve this kind of problems? We can change some fragments in the landscape. Can we do some forestation actions? Can we organize better the 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 increase of the urban areas? Change the organization of some land use land cover, create some steps, fragment steps around the matrix. There's a lot of actions that vary with the characteristics of each region. And to do this analysis, we use all our results, the land use, land cover, the transition in areas of this land use, our metrics of results from the landscape, and also the results from the landscape metrics to the classes. And as extra content, né, extra knowledge, I can share it for you. There's a lot of videos and tutorials that you can see in the YouTube. Then you can understand better the application of other kinds of metrics or the utilization in other softwares or in other contexts. And the utilization in other softwares, for example, the FragStats or the QGIS. There's other plugins you can also find in other softwares. And in this paper, it's a paper Professor Poliana and I working and apply some landscape metrics here in Brazil. Then we did all this analysis we study in our class and apply all the landscape metrics contexts and knowledge to analyze the changes in some regions here in Brazil. Then some reference. And to finish our class today, I have an activity proposed for you guys. And I would like you to reply all this knowledge and try to give the same data and the same information that I will share with you. But in our class, in a couple of days, I would like you to think about it and try to answer all these questions for our discussion in our next class. And what's going on with these results that we have here in the Pratice? What's happened with the Monjolinho watershed through 2030 and 2020? Remember, I will give you the shape files for 2013 and 2020 with the land use and land cover already classified. Then you're gonna have the area and the fragment land use land cover for each fragment for both years. You just need to do to make a table of this land use and land cover to try to find the same results that I show in our class and apply with the patch analysis the same landscape metrics in the same shape files. Then I will pass all this information with the Professor Poliana help. Then we will share in the university database. And I'd like to thank you again for the opportunity to be here with you guys. If you have any kind of questions or difficulty to work with the software, please tell me, then I'll be happy to help you. See you.